Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you, as always, by the GSMC Sports Network. Before we get into our second segment of today's show, talking some CFP Semifinal matchups, we have to remind you, as always, if you want more content such as this, to like, follow, and subscribe to both the show and the network. Great ways to keep up to date with all the content we release on the channel. But if you want to contribute and interact with our shows a little bit more directly, make yourselves available, as always, to both our website, gsmcpodcast.net, to leave a tip or donation or questions, comments, or concerns there, or the super chat, super thanks, and super stickers features here while we are live streaming our shows on YouTube. Great way, as always, to get your input out there, your opinions on what I want to do with the show. I'm always looking for nice ideas, so let me know what you think, as always, in the comments. Just makes it that much better. Without further ado, let us jump into the CFP semifinal match between Notre Dame and Penn State, taking place at 7:30 tonight. Let me set the scene for this game, because we're talking about two premier college football institutions. Not a lot of people realize how powerful both Notre Dame and Penn State were in the past as fantastic college football programs. We think Notre Dame, we think history, a program steeped in it, legendary players, legendary coaches. Knute Rockne, Ara Parseghian might come to mind. But the last time this team won a national championship was in 1988. On the Penn State side of things, they've had a lot of history, for good and worse. But ultimately, whether you love or hate him, the legendary Joe Paterno only came away with 2 championships during his tenure, and the last one came in 1986. So this is a long time coming for both of these teams. Now let's look at the modern head coaches here, because I think this is an interesting storyline to diagnose and analyze outside of what could happen in this game as well. When we look at Marcus Freeman, what he's done within the first 2 to 3 years of his tenure, create this aggressive smash-mouth style of football that a lot of his players are buying into. Notre Dame's becoming a destination spot for all these young recruits as well. They want to play for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the green and gold. And Marcus Freeman really has been an elite-level coach these past couple of seasons. The problem is he's lost some really baffling games. Marshall, this year's NIU game, comes to mind. And because of that, Notre Dame has had to play every single game of his tenure like in the playoffs. That really has helped them grow and mature as a team, but they don't necessarily want to be doing that all the time just because they've lost to teams they should have beaten handily. On the other side of things, James Franklin's been around the block plenty of times, but he doesn't necessarily have the high-profile wins to show for it. In fact, looking before the show, trying to get all the stats right about his records against these AP Top 25 and Top 5 teams for that matter, he sits at 3-17 against AP Top 25 teams. That number falls to 1-12 against AP Top 5 teams. So as you can see, interesting coaching battle. Never have they been on this platform before, the chance to compete for the national championship. Both of these programs will be getting to the game after such a long absence from it. Now, let's talk a little bit about these teams and about how this game can play out. And if you're a big fan of stout defenses and solid running games, then this game is probably for you, because these teams are starkly similar in their identities and how they move the football and how their defenses play as a result. Looking at Notre Dame, I feel like Notre Dame has gone underrated this season in terms of their offensive identity. I think it's been a little bit off-putting in terms of how people view their success, but in the playoffs, it has worked to a T. Hand the ball off to your 2 running backs, Love and Price, and ultimately good things will happen. You'll control the football, and most importantly, keep the football out of opposing offenses' hands. On the Penn State side of things, I think they do have the better quarterback in this game. Drew Aller has looked pretty solid in each of these past playoff games, but not necessarily spectacular. He is someone who's good for an explosive play or two every game, and he has the do-it-all receiver, tight end, running back hybrid in Tyler Warren to help him. But I do think that When Penn State are at their best, it's through their running back tandem themselves, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. And then, looking at these two defenses, they're stacked. Notre Dame, yes, really banged up on that side of the football. They don't have star linebacker Riley Mills. Benjamin Morrison, their star cornerback, has been battling injury all year. Only safety Xavier Watts has really been with a full bill of health in this defense all year in terms of stars, but they still have a lot of talent both up front and in the secondary to compensate for all those injuries. On the Penn State side of things, it all begins up front. Danny Dennis-Sutton and Abdul Carter are the kings of tackles for loss, kings of creating pressures, and the secondary has really come to life as well. 2 pick sixes against SMU in their first playoff game, and really did a great job of keying in on Ashton Jeanty as well against Boise State. So as you can see, these two teams have very similar mindsets of how they want to approach this game. Thus, that could be resulting in a very low-scoring affair. But ultimately, I do feel that the reason why I'm leaning a little bit toward Notre Dame, I live in the tri-state area. My friend went to Penn State. I have a lot of friends who have been around that Penn State culture and know what it's about. The reason why I have to lean Notre Dame in this game, even though I feel like Penn State are better in a lot of different aspects here. The quarterback, the run game, if Jeremiah Love isn't close to 100% in this one. Defensively, I believe they're just a bit better in terms of generating pressure, and that could matter a lot. I think in this one, it's going to come down to ball control. And I feel like while Drew Aller is certainly a game-altering quarterback, in this situation, he's prone to make explosive plays. I don't necessarily think that Notre Dame's defense will fall for it, and Riley Leonard, on the other hand, while not as impressive in certain moments as Drew Aller has been in this playoff, has been critical in his decision-making in key moments down the stretch. Against Georgia, we saw it. Every single one of his 91 rushing yards against Georgia were important to the outcome of that game. If he did not have those rushing yards, Notre Dame could potentially have lost that game. But combine that with their stout defensive play and combine that with Riley Leonard's intelligence as a running quarterback, as a dual threat quarterback, and you have a team that's really difficult to beat when they win the time of possession battle. And the time of possession battle will matter in this game. And I think if Notre Dame and Jeremiah Love is anything close to 100%, and Riley Leonard makes the same decisions he made against Georgia, and they really slow down this pass rush of Penn State, they might have better answers than what Penn State has to throw at them. Because Penn State, I really love this football team when it's firing on all cylinders. I really love when Drew Aller's in rhythm, when he's confident, when he's making throws like he did against Boise State. But the ultimate thing that gives me pause is that will they, if Notre Dame generate enough pressure on Aller, revert to this team that simply is too over-reliant on 3 key players, Singleton, Allen, and Warren? Because if they are, then that really, really stagnates them offensively. So I'm looking for the key players for Penn State's offense to be guys outside of those 3. I'm looking for Omari Evans to step up. I'm looking for Harrison Wallace to step up. And while they are deep at receivers, they also have to be versatile in short to intermediate areas of the field as well. Because I do feel like Notre Dame's secondary can feel confident in winning some of those matchups. Maybe not all of them, but enough to key in on the run game and what Warren can do. So that's going to have to be something that Penn State has to overcome in this game, has to really key in on and really attack, because if they don't, then I don't see them really winning the game with the very few possessions I think each team will have. Because Notre Dame is built to play complementary football. If, they come out and they're on defense and they immediately shut down Drew Aller and co. It's a 3-and-out. That gives them motivation to say, we can take control of this game. We can set the tone defensively, and that could lead to offensively, where we can wear down this Penn State pass rush. You can't give Notre Dame an inch, is what I'm saying here. And if Penn State does, and Drew Aller's a little bit too careless at times, perhaps, with the football, then Notre Dame will be apt to pounce. And this is no indictment of Penn State. I think that Penn State can stay in this football game because, like I said, these two teams are too similar to really kind of parse through all the differences here. But I do feel like, in terms of how this game looks on paper, ball control matters above all. And I do feel like Riley Leonard in this offense might just be a little bit better at that. Yes, I understand. On both sides of the football, Notre Dame are the more banged up team, and injuries matter. Absences matter, most importantly. And without Riley Mills, without, Jeremiah Love potentially on offense, you're losing two of your best and most impactful players on both sides of the football. But I do feel like they have been a team that has overcome a lot. They wouldn't have been here if they didn't overcome that Week 2 loss to NIU in the first place. So this team has been playing every single game with a level of control and maturity ever since that loss. That's very tough to beat. And I just feel like they're a steamrolling machine headed to the national championship game. I do think there are ways that Penn State can win this game. Don't get me wrong. They're going to have to win the turnover battle, which is tough because Notre Dame has won almost every turnover battle in the playoff thus far. The reason why they beat Georgia, they have to hit on all of their explosives. They can't just hit on one or two. They have to, if they're taking that risk downfield, to hit on all of those explosives, or else their offense might just stagnate and Notre Dame's defense will really begin to overwhelm them. And most importantly, you have to make sure Riley Leonard does not escape the pocket, because when Riley Leonard escapes the pocket, creates out of structure on those design runs or scrambles, that's when he's his most dangerous. So if they do all three of those things, there's a chance for a win here for Penn State. But I just think that because of the style of play that Notre Dame implements week in, week out, ever since that harrowing loss to NIU, this team is just a tough team to beat in any setting. And Marcus Freeman really will have his guys ready for tonight, for this moment, to lead them back to the promised land for the first time since 1988. I'm going to take them in a very close one, 24-21. I think it's going to come down to a last-minute field goal, which is interesting because Notre Dame had a lot of kicking problems coming in to the playoff, but Mitch Jeter seemingly solved them last game against Boise State when he made all of his attempts. So I do think it will come down to kicking, because that's how highly I think of these two teams' similarities. But it should be a fun one. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. But coming up next, we go back to the realm of MLB, talking about a generational Japanese talent that could swing momentum in a certain contender's favor should he land with them. So we're going to be talking about all the contenders for his signature this offseason and who could really be contenders to sign him as well. We'll be right back after this short break.